Within Queensland, all schools are required to develop a pedagogical framework in order to ensure every school has consistent and effective teaching and learning practices that focus on improved student achievement. Throughout my limited experiences of teaching and planning, I have already come to develop my own personal pedagogical framework. It is important as an educator that I am a constant critical evaluator of my teaching, and I am sure that as I develop and gain more experience as a teacher, this personal framework will also develop and change with me. When evaluating my current philosophy to teaching, 4 main concepts can be highlighted: encouraging efficiency, implementing authentic learning practices, inclusivity of all learners, and providing a supportive and safe learning environment for students. These create the 4 main pillars of my personal pedagogical framework, and this presentation will provide a greater insight into the contemporary learning theories and practices of teaching and learning involved in each of these, and how these enable or limit my pedagogical practices. The first pillar of my pedagogical framework underlines the importance of pedagogical practices that produce desired or intended learning outcomes and achievements from students. Whilst this involves careful alignment with the appropriate curriculum, my main focus here is on the development of higher order critical and creative thinking and the ability for students to show more complex transference abilities in their work. Such abilities enable students to bridge content with more remote concepts. Students who develop these skills become lifelong learners capable of analysing new situations, relating new information to what they already know, and thinking critically and creatively to solve problems, improve processes, and understand the world. Cognitivism plays a large role in this concept, where learning is a change in a person's mental structures that creates the capacity to demonstrate different behaviours. Piaget's cognitive development continuum can also be aligned with this concept in the way that thinking and skills are developed in response to the stimuli. This concept can also be associated with Vygotsky's zone of proximal development, which describes the distance between a student's ability to learn or perform a task from initial adult instruction to their ability to master and apply the skill individually. But how does this come into practice? The teaching and learning practices that I choose to implement are influenced by these contemporary learning theories in a way that they scaffold the way that students build upon their learning and skills and move towards more complex application. For most of my lessons, I apply Bloom's taxonomy to scaffold learning in this way. Bloom's taxonomy is arranged in a hierarchy of 6 levels from basic knowledge to evaluation at the highest level, and it is claimed that nearly all cognitive educational objectives can be located within this hierarchy. This teaching model scaffolds the instruction of the lesson whilst targeting specific learning goals at each level. As students progress through the lesson, so too do they build upon their knowledge and skills and move towards more complex application of their learning. Similar to this model, I implement Bybee's 5 E's to scaffold unit plans to assist students in developing these skills. Whilst Bloom's taxonomy moves students through a hierarchy of abilities each lesson, the 5 E's model structures learning throughout a unit to gradually build upon concepts and skills. As you can see in the diagram, the 5 E's model moves from basic levels of engaging students to students elaborating and evaluating their learning. These 2 models of instructions guide my planning to try and guide students to a place where they can not only demonstrate knowledge and skills, but build upon it in a way that is continuous and extends past the curriculum. This aims to promote more complex application of transference, as well as higher order critical and creative thinking. The ability for students to possess this skill will enable them to be lifelong learners, always seeking to learn more and apply what they learn to the world around them. Authentic teaching and learning. Closely connected to the aim of creating lifelong learners who are equipped for life in the real world is the concept for providing students with authentic learning. Curtin University defined this as learning that involves providing lessons, tasks and assessment items that are relevant to students and reflect or collaborate with real-world situations. The benefits of authentic learning experience give learners the capacity to turn information into useful, transferable knowledge. As well as this, the learning is enhanced as students are actively engaged in learning, as the content and tasks are relevant and purposeful. This concept of authentic learning is underpinned by a constructivist theory of learning, where learning is the active creation of knowledge structures, such as concepts, rules, hypotheses, and associations from personal experience. Such authentic learning opportunities provide students with personal experiences with real-world problems, procedures, and interactions from which they will continue to build upon throughout their lives. This also correlates with the inductive model of instruction, which focuses on the guided discovery of knowledge and skills. Authentic learning practices also align with John Hattie's research on visible learning. Hattie's key message is, the more the student becomes the teacher and the more the teacher becomes the learner, the more successful the achievement outcomes. Within the classroom and planning, this plays out to a great deal of student-centred planning, the use of ICT, and assessment tasks that encapsulate real-world tasks. Student-centred planning allows me as the teacher to integrate the curriculum with activities that are relevant to the students in my class, sparking interest and engagement. For example, the science curriculum may require Year 4 students to learn about forces in motion. By integrating this with the students' favourite sports, games and toys, the forces involved in these practices can be analysed and discussed. In my unit plans, I also tend to involve ICT quite a bit. As ICT is a large and integral part of our everyday lives, I view this as an important inclusion within authentic teaching and learning practices. This tool is not only engaging to students, but provides them with the technological skills and abilities that will assist them in their future lives. I regularly make reference to the SAMR model when implementing ICT within my teaching. This assists me to use ICT as a tool for learning, from the enhancement of existing practices to the development and creation of new practices. In the future, I need to ensure that I continue to closely adhere to this SAMR model to ensure that ICT inclusion is premised on it as a tool for learning, not a substitute for teaching. Finally, by developing authentic assessment tasks, assessment focuses on students using and applying knowledge and skills in real-life settings. While more traditional forms of assessment tend to have no specific application in real-world settings, authentic assessment helps students contextualise their learning and see how real-life conditions or situations affect their theoretical knowledge. As they draw together their knowledge and skills to engage productively and solve problems, their behaviour clearly shows both to staff and themselves their level of capacity or competence they have gained. To me, authentic learning and teaching practices are fundamental to not only engage students within their learning, but again to provide foundations for students to continue to learn throughout their lifetime. Inclusivity of all learners. This third pillar of my personal pedagogical framework focuses on the need to support all learners of all abilities in their learning. To me, this involves a deep understanding of the students in my class, their preferred learning styles and abilities, and how to provide learning and assessment opportunities that provide the prospect for all students to achieve. When aligning this concept with the contemporary learning theories, it can be said that depending on the instruction style implemented, this concept can be aligned with many of them. It all depends on the approach that will suit the student. This concept requires a great deal of student-centred planning in order to correctly align the curriculum to the specific and varied needs of the students in my class. In order to create learning opportunities that will effectively support the learning styles, I like to use Gardner's multiple intelligences to initially provide me with an overview of the learning strengths and weaknesses of the students in my class. As you can see, Gardner's multiple intelligence categorises learning styles so that teachers can implement lessons that will effectively engage students and provide the greatest opportunity for learning to occur by playing on the students' strengths and preferences. Another way that I support the needs of students in my class is by generally providing open-ended, student-directed assessment tasks. This means that I will detail to the class what the assessment piece has to demonstrate about their knowledge and understandings, but I let the individual student decide how he or she wishes to demonstrate this. This could range from a PowerPoint presentation, an oral, poster, multimedia presentation, play, song, the list goes on. This approach, I find, allows students to demonstrate their learning at a level and using a forum that is unique and appropriate to them. While this area of differentiation is an area that I still struggle with, I understand the necessity of implementing. Differentiated instruction should provide students with a range of ways to access the curriculum, instruction and assessment. Currently, I worry that whilst I provide differentiated instruction and assessment options, I am not providing as much access to the curriculum as I possibly can. It is through continued study and practice that I aim to continue to build upon this important pillar of my pedagogical framework to provide effective teaching and learning practices. Providing a supportive and safe learning environment. The final pillar of my pedagogical framework aims to support the emotional and behavioural needs of the students in my class. This concept aligns with the humanist view where the goal is the fully functioning person. This incorporates Maslow's hierarchy of needs, catering to the social, emotional and behavioural needs of the student. In order to provide a supportive and safe environment for my students, I need to foster positive teacher-student relationships and implement a behaviour management system that provides positive reinforcement. Research shows that teachers who support students in the learning environment can positively impact on their social and academic outcomes. When teachers form positive bonds with students, classrooms become supportive spaces in which students can engage in academically and socially productive ways. Students who have a positive relationship with their teachers use them as a secure base from which they can explore the classroom and school settings, both academically and socially, to take on academic challenges and work on social, emotional development. As well as developing such relationships, it is also vital to implement a supportive behaviour management system to not only direct the behaviour of the students, but to ensure a safe and controlled environment where learning can effectively take place. Within my time in the classroom, I have taken inspiration from the Positive Behaviour for Learning program, or PB4L. The PB4L program gives teachers strategies to turn disruptive behaviour around and create more positive learning environments for students. This program focuses heavily on positive reinforcement, with the notion that positive behaviour is a prerequisite to improving the engagement and achievement of our children and young people. Again, it is through further experience that I will be able to tailor these skills to appropriately implement and foster student relationships and a behaviour management system that supports all of the students in my class and which provides a safe environment for learning to occur. Through these 4 areas of encouraging efficiency, implementing authentic learning practices, inclusivity of all learners, and providing a supportive and safe learning environment for students, my current pedagogical framework can be viewed. As mentioned before, it is my duty as an educator to be a constant critical evaluator of my teaching practices in order to provide students with the most effective and efficient method of teaching I can provide. It is through these 4 pillars that I will continue to develop as a teacher and continue to add to this framework as I learn more.